In almost every single market in the world, when demand drops, prices fall because that's just how markets work. And that's basically true except in the housing market. In housing, demand can completely collapse and prices barely move. Sometimes they even keep going up. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why. Let's start with the biggest reason, the lock-in effect. Let's say you bought a house in 2020 with a 3% mortgage, your payment is $2,000 a month, and life is good. Now it's 2024 and rates are sitting at around 7%. You want to sell and buy a similar house with a similar price and maybe the same neighborhood, but here's the problem. Your monthly payment won't be $2,000 anymore. It'll be $3,200. Same house, same price, $1,200 extra per month. That's an extra $14,404 a year just because you moved. So what do you do in this situation? You decide you don't want to move and you stay put. Even if you want a bigger house, even if you need more space, and even if you hate your neighbors, you look at that $1,200 difference and you say, yeah, that's not happening. Now multiply that by millions of homeowners. When rates go up, inventory collapses. People who normally sell don't, and when nobody's selling, there's nothing to buy. So even though fewer people can afford homes, there are even fewer homes available, and that keeps prices high. In any other type of market, when demand drops, sellers compete harder for buyers. They have to drop prices, they'll offer deals, they do something. But housing works backwards. When demand falls, sellers just leave the market. Because here's the thing, most sellers don't have to sell. If you already own a home, you already have housing. You're not desperate, you're not on a clock, and if buyers aren't willing to meet your price, you just don't sell. You'll wait 6 months, you take the listing down, you could even try again next year, and when everyone's doing that at the same time, inventory stays tight, and tight inventory means prices stay high. We saw this in 2022 and 2023. When rates spiked, home sales dropped by 30 to 40% in some markets. Basically, there was way fewer transactions, and you'd think prices would tank, right? But they didn't. Most markets stayed flat or even kept rising. Why? Because the only people selling were the people who had to sell. People who had to relocate for their job, or they're going through a divorce, or just regular financial pressure. Everyone else looked at the market and said, nope, I'm good. So inventory stayed low, and low inventory keeps prices elevated. And here's another thing most people don't realize. Most homeowners are sitting on massive equity right now. The median homeowner in the US has over $200,000 in equity. So when the market softens, they're not panicking. They're not facing foreclosure. They can just hold. And when everyone holds, prices don't drop. Now compare that to 2008. In 2008, people were extremely over-leveraged. There was zero down, adjustable rate mortgages, and a lot of speculation. When prices started falling, people went underwater fast. And when you're underwater, you have two options. Keep paying a mortgage on a house worth less than you owe, or walk away. So millions of people walked away, foreclosures flooded the market, inventory spiked, prices collapsed. But today, most people are sitting on huge equity cushions. Even if home values drop 10%, they're still way above what they paid. So there's no forced selling. And without forced selling, prices stay high. Now you'd think, well, builders would just step in and flood the market with new homes. But they don't do that because building a home takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And by the time it's done, the market could be completely different. So when demand softens, builders don't speed up, they tend to slow down. They don't want to get stuck with homes nobody wants. And when they slow down, supply stays constrained, even when buyers disappear. Plus, we've been underbuilding in this country for over a decade, and we're millions of homes short of where we need to be. So when construction is slowing and we're undersupply, the shortage keeps getting worse, and that keeps prices from falling. And here's something else that we haven't talked about yet, and that's something called cash buyers. In some markets, 30 to 40% of sales are all cash. No mortgage, no rate sensitivity. It's just investors, wealthy buyers, foreign buyers, and they're just writing checks. And when rates spike, it doesn't affect them at all. So when traditional buyers disappear because they can't afford a 7% mortgage, cash buyers step in, and that puts a floor under prices. To put this into perspective, a buyer who could afford a $500,000 home at 3% can only afford $350,000 at 7%. Their buying power drops 30%, so they're out. But a cash buyer, they see that 500K house and they think that's cheaper than last year, so they buy it. And that keeps prices from crashing. There's also a psychological component here. Sellers have anchoring bias. They remember what their neighbor's house sold for 6 months ago, and they remember the estimates from last year, and they refuse to sell for less. Even if buyers aren't paying those prices anymore, they'd rather not sell than accept a lower number. This is called price stickiness, and it's massive in real estate. Sellers don't adjust quickly like they do in other markets, they just wait. And because everyone waits, prices stay elevated. So here's what happens when buyers disappear. The housing market doesn't crash, it freezes. Sales volume drops, transactions slow way down, but prices barely move. Because sellers aren't desperate, because inventory is locked up, because most owners are equity rich, and because cash buyers keep the floor from falling out. We literally saw this in 2023. Home sales hit a 30-year low. Fewer homes were selling than during the Great Recession, but prices stayed flat in most places. In some cities, they even went up because supply was constrained even more than demand. And here's why this feels so unfair if you're trying to buy. You see demand falling, you see fewer people able to afford homes, and you think, great, prices should drop now. But they don't. Because the people who already own homes, the ones locked into a 3% mortgage with 200K in equity, they're not selling. They have no reason to, so you're fighting over the tiny amount of inventory that actually hits the market. And because there's so little available, prices stay high. So what would actually make prices fall? You'd have to see mass forced selling caused by a recession or job losses and lots of foreclosures, or a huge spike in inventory. If millions of homes hit the market at once, prices will drop. But that's not happening. Or if rates stay high for years, eventually people have to move, they get divorced, they relocate, life happens. But that takes time. We're talking about a 5-year or more time frame, not a 6-month time frame. The bottom line is housing doesn't work like other markets. Sellers don't have to sell, inventory gets locked up when rates rise, most owners are sitting on massive equity, cash buyers create a price floor, and psychology makes people resistant to dropping prices. So even when demand collapses, supply collapses faster, and that's why prices stay high. It's not intuitive, it doesn't feel fair, but once you understand it, the whole market starts to make sense.